All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to talk about someone who lived almost 2,000 years ago, but honestly, his advice on things like friendship, gossip, even marriage, it feels like he could have written it yesterday.
You know this quote right here? It just nails it. It perfectly captures the genius of the guy we're talking about today, the ancient Greek writer and thinker Plutarch. He had this amazing knack for taking these big, universal human feelings and problems and just breaking them down with a clarity that, wow, it still hits home today. So first things first, when you hear ancient Greek writer, you might picture some stuffy, dusty historian, right? Well, forget that. Let's meet Plutarch the way he saw himself, as a life coach, a practical guide for living a good life, writing from right inside the Roman Empire.
You gotta remember, this was a time of really grand, big-picture philosophy. And Plutarch, he was different. He wasn't really interested in those abstract debates that only a few elite thinkers cared about. Nope, he was writing for real people, Roman officials, his friends, parents, people who were actually trying to get through the day and needed real advice on how to handle the messy stuff, like ambition, family, and friendships.
So what was his big idea? It's actually pretty simple, but so powerful. He believed that to act right, you first have to think right. And for Plutarch, this wasn't about, becoming some kind of robot and suppressing all your feelings. Not at all. It was about mastering them. He called it reasoned self-command. Basically, it's the power to just take a breath, think for a second, and choose how you're going to respond based on who you want to be, instead of just flying off the handle.
Okay, so let's get into it. His first big lesson? It's a doozy. And it's something that feels so relevant today in our world of social media likes and followers. It's all about this. How in the world do you tell a real friend from a fake one, a flatterer?
And the way Plutarch breaks this down is just brilliant. He says a true friend is like a doctor for your soul. They actually care about your well-being, and sometimes that means giving you some tough love, right? The truth can be bitter medicine. But the flatterer? Oh, they're a total chameleon. They have no real character of their own. They just change their colors, their opinions, their whole vibe to match whatever you want to hear. It's all about feeding your ego.
And he has this amazing metaphor for it. He calls the flatterer a shadow. Think about it. A shadow mimics your every move. It agrees with everything you do, but it's got no substance. It can't support you. It can't challenge you. It's just there. And that's exactly what a flatterer is, he says. They're just a hollow echo of you, not a real companion.
And to show just how dangerous this can be, Plutarch tells this really dramatic story. So there's this hero Gobryas, and he's wrestling an enemy in a pitch-black room. His friend, Darius, is standing by, but he can't see who's who. So Gobryas yells out, "Stab, though you stab both." Whoa! And that's the risk with a flatterer, isn't it? They get so tangled up in your life that trying to cut them out feels like you might end up hurting yourself or your real friends in the process.
So, this whole idea of being real and authentic, it doesn't just stop at friendship. It leads right into Plutarch's next piece of advice, which is all about the flip side, the incredibly corrosive power of gossip and just careless talk.
He talks about the busybody, and it's a personality type we all know. It's that person who just loves digging into other people's drama. You can totally picture them, right? Forwarding conspiracy theories, scrolling social media for gossip. But here's the kicker. While they're so busy pointing out everyone else's flaws, they're completely blind to their own. They keep tripping over their own problems because they're not even looking down.
And that's really the heart of his argument. It's kind of ironic, right? The busybody, by constantly criticizing other people, is actually doing their enemies a favor, pointing out all their weaknesses for them. But at the exact same time, by totally ignoring their own stuff, they become their own worst enemy. It's completely self-destructive.
This is why Plutarch was such a huge fan of silence. He basically says that, look, anyone can teach you how to talk, but it takes something more, divine even, to learn when to be quiet. Because think about it, you can always decide to say something you've held back, but once you've said something, it's out there. You can never, ever take it back.
And this wasn't just some abstract idea for Plutarch. No, he points to an actual real-world disaster, the fall of Athens. And how did it start? Not with some grand betrayal, but with something so small, so trivial. Just a few old guys gossiping in a barbershop about a weak spot in the city walls. But spies overheard them. That little piece of gossip made its way to the Roman general Sulla, and that very night, he attacked that exact spot. The result? Athens was almost completely destroyed. It's a terrifying reminder that small, careless words can lead to absolute catastrophe.
All right, let's shift gears a bit, from gossip to relationships, and you'll be amazed at how modern and just beautiful Plutarch's advice is for building a strong, lasting marriage.
So his first big idea for marriage is this vision of a total union. And his metaphor is perfect. He says a married couple should be like two liquids blended together. Once you mix them, you can't possibly separate them back out into yours and mine. It's all just one thing. One shared life, one shared bank account, one shared group of friends. Everything.
But he's also a realist. He warns that first spark of passion, that initial fire, it's like lighting a fire in a pile of dry grass. It flares up bright and hot, but it burns out just as fast. For that fire to last, he says, it needs to catch on to something with more substance. A lasting marriage has to be built on a foundation of shared character, of shared values, something real.
And he has one more great image for us, a mirror. What does a good mirror do? It reflects what's in front of it, faithfully. And that, he says, is how partners should be. They should harmonize with each other, reflecting each other's joys and sorrows. It's about being in sync, not being two opposite forces constantly clashing with each other.
Okay, so we've talked about friends, gossip, marriage, which brings us to the big question, right? Why are we still talking about this? Why does advice from a guy who lived 2,000 years ago still hit so hard today? Well, the answer is that his influence, while maybe quiet, has been absolutely massive. His essays basically became the go-to guide on human nature for centuries. You know the writer Montaigne, the guy who pretty much invented the modern essay? He was basically just having a long conversation with Plutarch on the page. Francis Bacon, writing about power, he was borrowing from Plutarch. Seriously, this guy's ideas are baked into the intellectual DNA of Western thought.
And when you step back and look at all of it, the advice on friends, on gossip, on relationships, you see that it all comes back to that one single, powerful idea we started with, reasoned self-command. The belief that using your reason to guide your actions is the absolute key to getting through life and becoming a good person.
So that kind of leaves us with a final thought to chew on. We live in a world that is just flooded with new advice, right? An endless stream of self-help books, life hacks, productivity gurus. But maybe, just maybe, the best guide we have for the future isn't something new at all. Maybe it's this ancient wisdom that we've simply forgotten and need to rediscover.